Welcome back to Brighter Morning with Bo. I am Bo Tiwari, and this is MCTV, Multicultural TV. We have the Minister of Public Utilities on the video line, and we'll connect with him now and talk with him about water and electricity and other matters related to that directly affect your lives and your homes. Good morning, Minister. How are you?
Good morning, Bo. Shall I call you Bo?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. It's a privilege to be on your program.
Yes, and I'm glad that you decided to come because the ministry that you hold is a very important one in terms of the daily lives of people. And I thought we might talk about some of the issues, the problems that people are having, but beyond that, what are the solutions that you might have in mind? Okay, so I want to start with this. I mean, in Trinidad and Tobago, there are about 600 or so communities. And you must have an idea how many community of those 600 get water 24/7. How many get less than once per week? You have an idea of that, and I guess the rest are somewhere in between.
Yeah, so based on the data that I've received from the Water and Sewage Authority and the Ministry of Public Utilities, it's not really broken down in terms of number of communities. It's really in terms of the population that receives 24/7 water supply. So at this point in time, in the rainy season, all things being equal, it's about 40% of the population that receives 24/7 water supply, and then it drops to a water supply of 5 days per week. You have a percentage of the population that gets water 5 days per week, 4 days per week, and it comes down to as bad as once in every 9 days, as the case may be. Those are the communities that, as using WASA's language, would be on the extremities. And what do I mean when communities are on the extremities? By way of an example, so you have the North Oropouche water treatment plant, which is located in the Valencia area, and in North Manzanilla, the eastern side of Trinidad, they also receive their water supply, approximately 9 million gallons of water per day at the North Oropouche water treatment plant. But North Manzanilla is located on the far east of that plant, and usually communities that are on the extremity of that plant or in any water producing plant, communities that are located on elevated areas, they tend to receive a poor water supply, and that is because of the infrastructure that was not designed and was not updated to ensure that the water, when it reaches those communities, it reach with adequate pressures, etc. So you would find that those communities, their water supply it's not as good as those communities that live closer to the water production plant. So what we have done, by way of an example, again last week, we launched, or rather we commissioned a new booster station in North Manzanilla to ensure that the water is further boosted to the areas. And what we have seen is that those communities that have been receiving water sometimes as bad as once or twice per month, they've immediately seen an improvement in their water supply about 4 or 5 days per week. That's the testimonies that we have received. So this is telling you that over the years, WASA or the country has not really invested significantly and rather sufficiently in ensuring that your infrastructure is designed in such a way that those communities that are located on the extremities of some of your major water production plants, the infrastructure is not designed to ensure that the water reaches there and that those communities receive an adequate water supply. And that is what we're doing under our Community Water Improvement Program. We've also established a national water sector improvement program as well. And those communities that are impacted in this particular way will see an improvement in their water supply because of the infrastructure. So let's come back to your question with respect to percentage of the population. So it's about 40% of the population that receives a 24/7 water supply. And then you have perhaps 20% receiving 5 days per week, 15% receiving 4 days per week, 3 days per week, and it comes down to those who are receiving approximately once per week or once every 9 days, as the case may be. And those are the communities that we are targeting under our National Water Sector Improvement Program, as well as the Community Water Sector Improvement Program.
What percentage of people do not receive water once per week, or worse than once per week? About 20%, you think?
No, I think it would be significantly less. Perhaps it would be in the area of 10 to maybe 12% of the population that receive water approximately once per week or less. And those are communities, as I've said, that are located on the far extremity of our water producing plants.
All right. I'll get to some of those things, but you know, when this station posts, every day when we have guests, we post who is going to be the guest the next day. And the station posted that you would be a guest yesterday evening. And someone wrote in a very civil manner, I thought, how come I pay my bills every quarter for 90 days of water, and I actually get water 8 days per month? Now, I asked that person to say what area she was from, but she did not respond. How do you talk to a citizen like that and give them comfort?
First, Bo, it is a valid concern because it doesn't make sense that you have to pay or you are required to pay for a service that you're not receiving. I mean, it's ridiculous. But this country has found itself, or rather, the water and sewage authority, and by extension, the country, has found itself in a situation where sufficient investments were not made or targeted over the last 20 years, to improve the water infrastructure to ensure that the vast majority of the population and communities across Trinidad and Tobago get an improvement in their water supply. So as I have said before and a short while ago, that there are a number of communities, unfortunately, because of lack of targeted investment, technology, etc., pressure management, those communities are not getting a 24/7 water as they should. And therefore, the concern of the customer is quite legitimate. But we also have to take into consideration other factors that contribute to that. The water rates that we have in Trinidad and Tobago has no connection whatsoever with the cost of production of water. It was by the old Public Utility Commission in 1993. It has nothing to do with the cost of production of water. It is based on the annual rateable value of property, which obviously means that the water rate was pegged, against the value of one's property, and no relation or correlation with the production of water. That has been in place since 1993, and therefore WASA has not been recovering its rates and recovering the amount of money and its expenses over the years to be able to deliver water. Delivering water is a very expensive process. It includes treating the water, extracting the water from your wells and reservoirs, transmitting the water, distributing the water all across Trinidad and Tobago, having to pay high electricity bills, etc. So it's a very expensive process. And when you have a rate that is not commensurate with the cost of producing that very precious product, then what you've found yourself in is a very vicious cycle where any attempt to transform that organization, to update your rates, will be met with the very same response like this particular customer who claims that why should I pay and I'm not getting a service? And that is in fact a very, very valid concern. But you have to take all of these things into consideration to ensure that the utility company becomes financially self-sustainable so that it can invest in the necessary infrastructure, it can invest in the necessary technology so as to improve the services all across Trinidad and Tobago. And hopefully, when we complete this process, we will not have customers, and so many customers like this particular one, who complains that they have to pay for a bill or pay a rate or a service that they are not receiving adequately. And it's a very valid concern, but we have to address all of them.
Okay, we'll get to the rate issue in a minute, but I want to ask this. When I was in Parliament as a member of the opposition, I was chair of Public Accounts Committee, and we engaged WASA on at least 2 occasions during the 5 years that I was chair. And on the last occasion, which would have been about 2019, the then chairman indicated that the leaks constitute 50% of the wastage of water that WASA actually has in the distribution system. What are you doing about that particular problem and the bigger problems of water sourcing, capture, retention, storage, distribution, and the issue of fairness? Because there is often a charge that there is not fairness in the distribution of water.
That question, you've raised a number of issues here. So let's deal with the primary issue that you've raised in terms of leaks. Now, I don't agree with that chairman who claimed that 50% of the water that is produced is lost via leaks, because what I have discovered is that most of your meters on your water production sites and transmission meters, etc., they're not in place. So you're not actually measuring the amount of water that you're producing. You're not measuring the amount of water that you send in specific communities around Trinidad and Tobago. So it's highly speculative for one to claim that 50% of your the water that you produce, is lost in leaks. When you, as we are about to roll out in a very short while, you install your bulk.
What you distribute, not what you produce, what you distribute.
Well, again, and it's the same thing, because you're not measuring. You don't have bulk meters on your main transmission lines. You don't have bulk meters on your distribution lines. You don't have district meters in place to let you know, okay, how much water is being consumed in Port of Spain area, in central area, in Tobago. So these are the things that you have to put. These are the infrastructure and the technology that you need to put in place to get data that is accurate. And there is nothing in WASA, nothing at this point in time, that suggests or to confirm or to support the assertion that 50% of the water that you distribute is in leaks. I can tell you, Bo, that I have every reason to believe that 50% of the water that is being distributed is actually stolen. Because the problem is illegal connection, not only at the domestic level, but you have big consumers who have tapped off from WASA's distribution system and extracting water illegally. And that is the main problem. So by way of an example, between Central and South Trinidad, you have 40 imperial million gallons of water coming from the Caroni water treatment plant. And then you have 20 to 25 million gallons of water coming from desal. So you're looking at about 65 million gallons of water going to Central and South Trinidad, but yet still there are clusters of communities inside of there, a number of communities that claim that they do not have an efficient water supply. So therefore, we need to conduct an efficient audit throughout the entire distribution system, putting bulk meters at key points to give you the necessary data and information as to where exactly the water is going, because you are producing millions and millions of gallons of water on a daily basis, but yet still so many of our communities complain of not getting the water. So the water is going somewhere because we are producing quite. I don't see. I know
that for a fact, because many of the communities would complain, and part of my challenge as an MP when I was there, every evening I would get in touch with WASA and give them a list of communities that were not getting water and try to get them to, first of all, manage the water supply and to set up some kind of program that would make the communities know predictably when they were going to get water. So I know that problem. I know it's a real problem. But I want to ask you, suppose you came to the issue, the water problem or the water issue in Trinidad, like Columbus then. You came here, you didn't know anything that was going on. You come and you assess the problem and you have to solve it. How would you, now that you have been minister for a little while, how do you diagnose the problem in Trinidad and Tobago with water, really? And what are you going to do to make water available to 450,000 plus homes in this country and a range of businesses. And are we going to see that under your watch? All right, so I'm giving you a chance to basically to say, what is your solution strategy for the water problem?
So what I have discovered is that as communities grew over the years through private developments, public housing through HGC all over on the East-West Corridor, Central Trinidad, South Tobago, WASA has not kept up to pace with the additional demands that are being made on the system. So you have a number of communities being constructed all over, and in some of those areas you don't have water producing sites, so you have to extract the water or get the water from the closest site, which sometimes is not too close, and then to transport the water into those communities without identifying closer and localized sources of water, so as to ensure consistency. So and that is one of the reasons that contributed to the problem that we have in Trinidad and Tobago. WASA has not, over the years, with the growth of population across the country, the growth of communities, they have not invested significantly in getting additional water sources. So what we are doing right now, we are going to construct a new, and I plan through with the support of the government and international organizations, we're going to construct a new water plant that has the capacity to produce 10 to 15 million gallons of water in the Sangre Grande area. That will bring the Sangre Grande, Manzanilla, Komoto area closer 24/7 water supply, because they will have their own source of water, because the water source based on hydrological report is there. The water is there. So as opposed to Grande having to rely on North Oropouche, which 12 million gallons of water per day, and then North Oropouche has to be transported down to the certain big communities in East-West Corridor. North Oropouche will then focus its 21 million gallons of water on the East-West Corridor. Grande will have its plant that will have the capacity of 15 million gallons of water, bringing that large catchment area closer to 24/7 water supply. We are also going to do the same thing in Central Trinidad. We've discovered the big Ravine Salt plant, Freeport mega water aquifer, based on recent reports and studies by the WRA and other independent organizations. Within the central catchment area, we have the potential to develop nearly close to 12 imperial million gallons of water. So with the help of our international partners, we are also going to put down a scalable plant within the central region that will now have the capacity to produce and distribute water to all the populated areas in central Trinidad, thereby removing their dependence on water coming from the Caroni water treatment plant. All right, and then you go down to South Trinidad and you do the same thing in the Chatham, in the Point Fortin area, which again, based on our hydrological studies, there are about 10 million gallons of water to be harnessed from our aquifers in that particular region. And then we are entering into an MOU with Heritage Petroleum, where they are going to transfer some of their water producing assets, including 20 water producing wells, that will bring that whole area, Pinal, Siparia, Point Fortin, La Brie, etc., Palo Seco, to about 15 million gallons of water, removing their dependence on diesel, expensive diesel that you really can't afford at this time, removing their dependence on Caroni water. And you take that additional volumes of water that you have from Caroni to redistribute to areas that are stretched. And that is exactly the plan that we're on. And I believe within the next year or the next 2 years, when these projects come to our fruition, because we are utilizing technology, we are not going to be constructing those traditional water treatment plants that would take 5 years to be constructed. Plants are manufactured on sites in industries across the world, and you can order your plants based on your demands. Those plants will be imported, and you will get all the necessary technology to produce the water within the shortest time possible and bring relief to hundreds of thousands of our customers across Trinidad and Tobago. And those plants, you get it for approximately 60% less of the value of a traditional plant that will be constructed. So for example, a 5 million Imperial million gallon plant, if WASA has to construct that, they will tell you it will cost you $50 million in order to construct 3 years or 4 years. But with those scalable plants that you can bring into the country, it will take you approximately 5 months to get here, installed, produce the water with 60% less of the value. In other words, it will cost you probably about $12 million to get a plant that will produce that same value of water. So you are utilizing technology, you are utilizing the new ways in which you can and get the necessary plant, machinery, and equipment into the various locations that are water stretched. And we are going to deploy those plants all around the country that have been having serious problems for water in Mayaro, in Moruga, in Barrackpore, Sangre Grande, Manzanilla, South Trinidad, and in Tobago. And we believe once we continue on that course, we will bring the country, the vast majority of the country, closer to 24/7 water supply.
Okay, so you're talking about construction of 3 plants, then one in Sangre Grande area to serve that eastern portion of the country, one in central Trinidad to solve that problem, and one in the Point Forte area to solve the problem in the deeper south. And
that's
basically
correct,
it's a production focus, right? You are basically producing additional amounts of water in Trinidad and Tobago. And you say that these plants are doable in about 5 months. So you are talking about putting these 3 plants down in what time frame?
So we've started our discussions with the Canadian High Commission, because on these plants in Canada, there are a number of manufacturers there that have the capacity to produce these these highly technological plants and within record time. And so they're providing technical assistance through government-to-government arrangement, and that unit within the Canadian High Commission that works on government-to-government arrangement. So we are looking at the different models that we can utilize, because as far as I am concerned, we have a water crisis in Trinidad and Tobago, and therefore within the next year or the next 2 years, we have to come up with robust mechanisms to ensure that the water shortfall that we have in this country that is adequately tackled and dealt with, and those areas that are water stretched, those areas that are getting water once a week, once a month, as the case may be, will be within my focus within the next year. So that with that approach, I am expecting by the end of next year, those communities in Barrackpore, in Mayaro, in Gasparillo, in South Trinidad, in East Trinidad, will see an improvement in their water supply by this mechanism.
Okay, so Minister, I will understand you to say that within 2 years, we are going to have those 3 plants built and the water problems for those particular communities solved. Okay. Now, I want to ask you 2 questions on water, and then I want to move on to electricity. And then we'll take a break for the commercials. All right? If you can answer me precisely, I'll be grateful. What happened to the IDB loan and the plan that came to cabinet under the last minister? Has that been scrapped, modified, replaced by a different approach, different strategy?
Right. So you would recall that earlier on this year, the cabinet subcommittee that I chaired in the operation that the Prime Minister asked us to look at the operations of the Water and Sewage Authority and to make recommendations. We have spoken to the IDB, we have spoken to CAF, and there are other international, the World Bank, and they've put forward proposals to support the financing of the transformation of WASA, as well as to undertake some major capital projects to improve the water supply in the country. So we have about three proposals on the table, and we are looking at them carefully. And the cabinet, we are hoping that before the end of the year, we will be quite clear as to whether or not we will continue with our discussions with the IDB or with CAF or any one of the international lending agencies. But we have not decided to go on any one of them at this point in time. They are just proposals on the table, and we are looking as to what might be best moving forward.
Okay, so you are considering those. So I get the feeling that you you are taking a two-pronged approach. You're taking a production approach, which these three plants, which would increase the water supply and increase delivery capacity. And the second one is a transformation of water for greater efficiency, effectiveness, etc.
Actually, it's a three-pronged approach. So it's a technology approach because we have recognized that we need to incorporate smart technology in the distribution of the transmission and distribution of water. And that is the only way in which you can manage your distribution and realize that there might be some discrimination in the actual distribution of water. With the incorporation of smart technology, SCADA, etc., one will be able to ensure that there is an equitable distribution of water across the country. So you must incorporate and include technology in the transmission, distribution of your water supply. You must transform and re-engineer the Water and Sewerage Authority, and you must increase your water production level to get at least 50 to 60 extra million gallons of water to bring stability throughout the entire country.
All right, Minister, I'm going to move to tea and tech when we come back after the break, but I just want to tell you, we had some responses to this interview on Facebook, and I just want to share with you what somebody said, and it's really by way of complaint and asking WASA to do something. WASA's main line is leaking in HDC development in Cypress Hills in Union Hall, San Fernando. Lot 94 contacted WASA 4 days ago and no response. Water is running there 24/7. So that is one area. I can WhatsApp you the information afterwards if you wish. And then
a telephone number.
Yeah. And then there's Cedar Avenue, Cypress Hills, Union Hall, San Fernando. In front of lot 84, there's another problem of water just gushing away. So I will send you that information so that you can have WASA deal with it. But we'll take a break now. Thank you for being with us, staying with us, viewers. And we are talking to the Minister of Public Utilities, Minister Marvin Gonzales, and we come back after the break to talk about tea and tech.
Welcome to Lifetime Solutions, where you can trust your roof to us. Our services include custom fabrication, steel framing, roofing installation, on-site roll forming, roofing maintenance and services. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionst.com. Lifetime Solutions. You can trust your roof to us. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com.
As businesses adapt to the new normal, let Magic Mist take care of your cleaning and sanitization needs with our COVID-19 BSCAI internationally certified technicians. With over 43 years of protecting the health of our nation, you can trust us to ensure your building remains safe, healthy, and functional. Give us a call today at 638-6675 or 332-5522. Magic Mist Services Limited, your total facilities management solutions provider.
Welcome back to Brighter Morning with Bo on MCTV, and our guest this morning is the Minister of Public Utilities, Mr. Marvin Gonzales. Just one quick question on water before we go. I was looking at the 360 report of the World Bank, which basically examines the entire Caribbean and looks at the challenges in the context of climate change, COP26, etc., and what we need to do for resilience. That report is actually called 360 Resilience, and it focuses on the Caribbean. And I kind of picked up there, I mean, I didn't read the entire document in its entirety, but I picked up there that what they are saying is that we have water production capacity in Trinidad and Tobago for 40 years. Are you aware of that, and is that long-term kind of thinking going to affect what you do about Trinidad and Tobago's water supply and management?
Well, yes, we have to very soon, when the government approves the transmission roadmap for WASA, the Ministry of Public Utilities will be presenting to Cabinet an integrated water resource management plan for the next 25 or 30 years. Because the availability of water and the sustainability of the availability of water is not one that is not only the responsibility of the Water and Sewage Authority, but you have a number of players, the construction sector, the EMA, the way in which we go about this whole issue of illegal quarrying in our major rainforests, etc. So there are a number of issues that impact upon the availability of water, and climate change is one of the threats to this precious resource, all right? Rising sea levels, the extreme weather patterns that we are having, and what we need to do. 60% of our water source in Trinidad and Tobago comes from surface water. And given the extreme weather conditions we are having, with a lot of rain, heavy rainfalls in the rainy season, and extreme dry conditions in the dry season, and for a protracted period of time, that 60% availability of water is impacted tremendously, either by high turbidity in the water supply or low levels in the dry season, thereby exposing the risk of thousands of people. So we have to look at different ways at utilizing our bedrock aquifers, underground aquifers, which will give you a more sustainable yield. But you have to take care of your rainforest. You have to discontinue this whole issue of deforestation. You have to discontinue illegal quarrying, because all of these things impact upon the availability of this precious resource. And therefore, as soon as the government approves the transformation moving forward in the next couple of weeks, we will be publishing our integrated water resource management program, which will bring all the different pieces together to ensure that as a country, we do what we're supposed to do on the various sectors to improve and to manage the availability of water in Trinidad and Tobago.
All right, good. We move on now to something else. We're going to talk a little bit about electricity and energy. Now, the Prime Minister has spoken about this. He spoke about this in COP26. And I had the president of BP here, Claire Fitzpatrick, and we had a discussion, and this was part of the discussion. But there's a partnership between the government and BP and Shell, and I think NGC is the representative of the government on this project. The BP's company is Lightsource BP. And the objective there is to have 10% renewable electricity to the grid within a certain reasonable framework. I understand, though, that there's a problem with the contract between TNTech and TGU, which basically demands that TNTech takes the supply from TGU, take or pay. And that creates a challenge for TNTech in absorbing new sources of electricity on the grid. What is the issue here, and how is that going to be resolved? Because we have some time until it comes on stream. Will we be making a dramatic shift to renewable energy, or what are we going to be doing?
We have to make that dramatic shift to renewable energy, because by virtue of our international obligations, we have to reduce our carbon footprints as a country. And as you know, electricity in Trinidad and Tobago is produced by natural gas that we purchase from the NGC. Now, what I can tell you, the TNTEC's contractual obligations with TGU has absolutely nothing to do with the arrangements with BP Lightsource and NGC and the entering of a power purchase agreement with TNTEC. As a matter of fact, the discussions between TNTEC and BP Lightsource for a power purchase agreement is well underway, and they're making tremendous progress. Ministry of Public Utilities is working on the license arrangement that is causing a slight delay, but I am hoping that by the end of this month we will be out of that, because we will finalize the license agreement for BP Lightsource so that they can make some tremendous progress. Now, there is already demand from certain private sector interests to consume that 112 megawatts of clean energy that is going to come out of this project. I am not at liberty to say exactly some of the private sector companies that are asking for that 112 megawatts of clean energy or solar energy, but there are already demands, because based on the trends internationally, some of the products that we make in our petrochemical sector, there are demands now for these petrochemical companies to utilize clean energy for the production of some of our petrochemical products. And therefore, they are already approaching TNTEC to utilize more than the 112 megawatts of power that is going to be realized from that arrangement. And more, there's increasing appetite for clean energy or electricity generated from clean energy. And therefore, TNTEC has to make that shift to move towards clean energy, wind, solar power, etc. These things must be part of TNTEC's business plan, and is in fact part of TNTEC's business plan, because as the world shifts towards renewable energy, demands are now being made on our petrochemical industries to ensure that those products that are made on our petrochemical plants are made from clean sources of energy. And that is where TNTEC has to make that shift.
Because if they don't, they will be very uncompetitive in the market. So
exactly, and that is what is happening. If they don't, their products will not be able to compete on the international market. Yeah. And so TNTEC, from a business model, has to make that shift, and is making that shift. As I told you a short while ago, the 112 megawatts of power that is going to be realized from that arrangement with BP Lightsource and Energy, demands are already being placed on TNTEC to utilize the entire amount of power, Minister, and even more.
Minister, I'm going to give you the last word on this question, because it is the money question. How are you going to make water and electricity economically viable in Trinidad and Tobago, and allow TNTEC and WASA to stand on their own without government subsidies? And how are you going to do that in such a way that you satisfy the population's needs with water and hopefully cleaner energy, and at the same time not destroy household incomes by increasing the price to the consumer so severely? Because that is your dilemma right now.
And that is a serious dilemma, Bo, that I have to admit is a very serious dilemma, and that we have to grapple and that we have to face with. Now, in Trinidad and Tobago, we have enjoyed subsidies in water and electricity for maybe 40 years since our independence. We have all been enjoying subsidies in water and electricity, and there are a number of us who enjoy those subsidies who do not require those subsidies, and therefore we have to change the way in which we apply subsidies in Trinidad and Tobago. Subsidies should really be geared towards those disadvantaged groups in our society, the poor, disadvantaged, the aged people who simply cannot afford to pay for water and electricity. The resources that you have, the declining financial resources that you have as a country, ought to be placed or targeted towards those people in our society that require the subsidies, and those that have the ability to pay for water close to the market rate, the economic rate, to produce water and electricity should be allowed to pay closer to the market rate so that water or water company, the Water Sewage Authority, and can necessary revenue, routine maintenance on their distribution grid to transmit electricity in a more reliable fashion throughout communities, not having the level of disruptions that we normally have, especially in rural communities. And the same thing for WASA. You have rates that can allow the utility company to be able to continue to distribute and to expand its infrastructure to ensure that all our communities get water, to invest in technology to reduce its operational expenditure, etc. But all these things are anchored not only in a rate review or a realistic rate review for both utility companies, whilst protecting the weak and the vulnerable, but we also have to ensure that the business model that both WASA and TNTech utilized, it reduced their operational expenses. It ensured that enough revenues are poured into these organizations so that they can provide reliable services to the country. And that is the direction. So by 2024, we are expecting that the income, or rather the revenue and the operational expense of WASA will be stabilized so that the monies coming from the state will go towards capital projects to expand WASA's infrastructure throughout Trinidad and Tobago, and that the utility company would be able to invest in technology, etc., to ensure that we have a more equitable and reliable supply of water. The same thing for TNTech.
All right, we'll monitor that to see how it goes, and we wish you well on those projects. I want to thank you for being our guest this morning on Brighter Morning with Bo. I hope you'll come another time so we can discuss further the progress that you are.
I said we have so much more to discuss.
Yes, so we can discuss the progress that we are making as a country in these areas that are so vital. Thank you very much for coming. This is Brighter Morning with Bo.
Thank you.
We have to break now for the news. I want to thank you very much for staying with us and listening and to the discussion with Minister Marvin Gonzales, the Minister for Public Utilities. And we hand over now to Andrew Chan and the 7 o'clock news.